In this episode of Costume as Character, I spoke with Amy Roberts and Sid Roberts, the costume designers on The Crown Season 6. But before we get started, if you want more Costume as Character videos, don't forget to like, it really helps us out. In the first half of Season 6, Diana is living her sort of emancipation on vacation in Spain, and she's really welcomed into the Fayed family. Obviously, particularly, she builds a relationship with Dodi. But one of the really key things about the scenes that take place in Spain is how different the costume work is for the Spain scenes and for the Fayed family, particularly when juxtaposed with the royal family.
So actually, where we, as we know, Season 5, it leaves us, her packing for the holidays, she then arrives at on Season 6. And I think what me and Amy really talked about was in this chapter of her life, which was really short-lived, was her kind of re-establishing or refinding a role for herself outside of the royal family, and that was as a mother, which came, I think, the most easily to her and warmly and happily, and then the role of the ambassador when she goes to Bosnia. And then even like indecisions with clothing, when they go to Monte Carlo for ice cream. And we were very conscious there that we wanted to keep her in normal clothes, that she wouldn't have dressed up as Diana to go, because it was almost a testing or a trying out. Can I go to Monte Carlo with my now love interest and not be treated any differently? And of course she couldn't. So even a costume decision like that was really conscious as well. And when she goes, and Amy always talks about this, in that tomato red dress, that we kept her and the boys, because they were still young enough where maybe she was having an influence on how they dressed. And we wanted her to be very clean, and this block colour amongst that yellow, she walks up amongst that yellow villa in this world of the Fayeds with lots of playful patterns, and this world that she's about to potentially embark on.
And it's such a stark contrast to what she's come from as well, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of are on this opposite scale of wealth and class, right?
Yeah.
Totally right, and we really wanted to point that out. So we really had the Fayeds all in patterns. You had Heine and double leopard print. So that's exactly what we wanted to do with that scene. And it was the very first time, and it's this, embarking on a new life.
Yes, we're coming from urban London, threading up those steps into a whole different culture, aesthetic.
Taste.
Different kind of warmth, I think. And I love the way that's portrayed about the El Fayeds. I mean, quite controlling by the dad, but there's that whole culture is so different and exciting, isn't it? Against our...
Like you say, warm, and when Diana sees Dodi with the kid, and I think there was something that felt very appealing to her about that.
Well, there's also the fit and fabric too, right? Of everything being a little more drapey and loose and less structured that you get in the royal family, where everything is buttoned and much more structured and confining.
And it's why it's interesting that with the story that was written for us also with costume, because you're doing a call and response in those episodes, especially one between what's going on with Diana and Dodi on the yacht, and then what's going on back at Balmoral with, and that scene with the two photographers. So
yes, it's kind of vibrant holiday clothes pared back to kilts and cold and jumpers, and it's the two worlds, isn't it? So you can, it's a lovely visual story to tell there.
One of the trickier things about talking about costume on something like The Crown is we obviously know that these are very real people, and particularly with Diana, she is a fashion icon. And when you're designing costume, yes, you're obviously paying homage to the real person that the character is inspired by, but there's also an element of dramatic storytelling that has to take place. That storytelling is reinforced by specific costume choices. So it was really interesting to talk to Amy and Sid about how they played with or manipulated reality and the clothes that Diana really wore within their work on the show.
How I would answer that also is, yes, we have our moments where we recreate them, like the revenge dress, and so that's just going to sit against whatever the set is, and that's just going to sit against in Aberfan. But then I think in terms of with other looks that we kind of replicate or go towards, in terms of set and all of and those collaborations, it's very much depends on our choice of where we put that outfit that you know. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
If it's something that's a little bit more fluid or malleable, so with the red dress, she didn't wear it when she was going, as far as we know, when she was going on holiday. So that's something we knew that she wore, but for our story, we wanted to put it there because of what story we were telling and against the yellow.
Right.
So that's what I would say. If we could move things, unless it had to be the revenge dress in that context or Aberfan in that context, then when we used other things, we weren't wedded to where they were used. Like the caring dress.
Yes.
I read something of the designer saying that we didn't use it correctly, or something like that, because the whole point of it was she wore it 8 times.
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing a TV
That's
program.
not the story we're telling.
Yeah, we can't show her in something 8 times.
Right.
It's not that I missed the point of your dress, but that's not what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
So we had it when she was arriving for her second, what they called the second honeymoon. So that's what we'll do. I think
That's often
that
the
answers your
point
question.
of drama, isn't it? Like go back to 4 with Margaret Thatcher and Paul, our director. When she goes to Balmoral, he really wanted to point out Thatcher's discomfort in that she's not in her safe urban environment. She's there in Balmoral. She doesn't want to be there. And there's that hilarious scene where she goes out with the Queen hunting, shooting, whatever. He said, I want a really bright blue, a Thatcher blue, but bright, bright, bright. And we kept getting blue. He said, no, brighter, brighter, brighter. So he had in his head this huge landscape, Scottish landscape, with the Queen obviously very suitably dressed and subtle. And there is Margaret
sticking
Thatcher,
out like
frightening every wild animal away. So there are things like that we can use. And we're costume designers, not fashion designers.
Right. One of the most iconic pieces of costume in the first part of season 6, let's be honest, so much of it is iconic, but for me, one of the most iconic elements is the blue swimming costume that Diana wears. There's a photo of her in real life sitting on the diving board out at sea, and it's become such a touchstone cultural picture that encapsulates Diana's entire journey and even her death. Now, obviously, within the confines of the show, we have to remember and remind ourselves as viewers that the people in the show didn't know what was going to happen. And so the costumers and the actors and the writers and everybody involved have to forget reality, let go of all of those preconceived notions that we have about what those clothes and those moments mean, and just play into the moment. The blue swimming costume for me was really exciting because I actually used to be, this is such a random tangent, I used to be a competitive swimmer, and I was really comfortable in a bathing suit, and that was actually where I felt most at home. I struggled a lot with fashion and really loved just being in a Speedo, which sounds insane. But for me, seeing that image and watching Elizabeth Debicki in those swimming costumes, in those scenes, that is Diana really owning herself. She's left these strictures of the royal family behind. She's on vacation. She doesn't have her kids around. She's back to reclaiming her sense of identity. And there's no better way of doing that than getting as close to being in your own skin as humanly possible.
There wasn't a pressure. It was a color and a stretch material. Right, and a shape. But we'd already worked with Gotex. We'd already worked with our swimwear maker, so the shape was down by that point. The shape that was right for the period, but also made Elizabeth Debicki feel comfortable. It was down. So no, but what we find interesting about that is, you're right, it comes from the revenge dress. So if you just put those 3 silhouettes together, the wedding dress where she's covered up and she's been and she's taken by the palace and she's
almost subsumed by
do you know what I mean? Like that's
she can't get into
this
the
is the thing,
royal
it's this like
coach.
huge, like this huge, then you go revenge dress where you're paring back and revenge, and as Amy says, it's this tight bodice, which leads us then to the 3rd silhouette, which is the swimsuit, and there is a real transformative journey there. And however you want to read that, whether it's she's more vulnerable, whether it's actually she's strengthening herself as a woman, you can read it either way. And I think we were saying again, because you know what comes, you can imbue meaning on it that might not otherwise be there. And actually there was hardships that were going on for her with figuring out with her kids and not being able to talk to them, and that, you know, like when you separate from somebody, the kind of time with the kids. But she was embarking on something that also was quite exciting.
Obviously, we're looking at season 6, part 2. Not to sound insensitive, but Diana's not a part of that season. However, both Amy and Sid were asked a lot, including by me, about Diana's costume work, because Diana, as we said, is an icon and everyone is really interested in seeing how those looks are portrayed in the show. Unfortunately, the side effect of that is that a lot of the other really intricate, very detailed, and very exquisite costume making isn't talked about so much.
Yes, of course.
Everybody else.
Okay.
296 other speaking parts.
I nearly fell off my chair when an interviewer this morning asked us about Princess Margaret.
Right.
I thought, wow.
Right.
But that's fine. It's the Diana effect.
Yes.
I mean, there's something miraculous about that woman. She had something, whether it was she manipulated that, whatever, and it's still there, isn't it?
And also,
so you just have to go with that.
And I think also she's so known for her fashion, right? And somebody like the Queen, who Amy and me absolutely love doing in costume. We love working with Imelda, we love doing the Queen's costumes, but she's not thought of in the same way sartorially as Diana.
Right.
So I understand why as costume people we get asked about the person that's the fashion icon.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, again, because we're not fashion designers, we're costume designers, both got in, we love everybody. So when people ask us, oh, why Diana was such a fashion icon, but we kind of costume-wise, we love everyone.
Yeah.
And also,
we love doing everyone just as
so many
much.
of those characters are character-led. You know, there are little nuances about people. I mean, I love doing like Michael Fagan, you know, the guy that broke into the Queen's bedroom. He's as important to us as Diana, but the viewing audience, I get it. I get it.
Like Nancy Tennant, you know, Nancy Tennant, the power. There's been amazing people, and again, I think if you're a fashion buff or if you're a fashion designer, it makes sense that you'd be really into Diana. And I got asked that the other day with Diana, but I thought I love doing people that are unfashionable just as much as I love doing people that are fashionable.
We did Geraldine Chaplin, for heaven's sake.
As Wallace Simpson.
Right.
Which was phenomenal. To work with somebody like her.
Yeah.
And I think her wardrobe was for us, it was so rewarding to do.
Yeah.
Never an
Khalid
action.
as Dodi Al-Fayed, Salim as Mohammed Al-Fayed.
Well, that also you talked about before, like playing with new fabric and pattern and breaking out of
and
that
a different
little bit.
aesthetic,
Yes,
isn't it?
Totally different cultural aesthetic, and we went and we sourced all of the silks for Mohammed Al-Fayed's shirts from Paris.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not London.
Season 6, part 2 focuses a little bit more on William and Kate, and obviously Kate herself is also a fashion icon in another way. And one of the things that Amy and Sid were very keen about was making sure that her looks were very distinct, but also very specific to the time and place that Kate grew up in. One really interesting costume element that they incorporated into Kate's design is this very specific wear to her jeans, which is when you think about the 90s, you've got that boot cut jean, the long boot cut jean, and the stiletto boots. And you get this effect of the heel of the stiletto digging a little hole into that fabric. And that's such a key, subtle costume moment that really grounds the character in reality.
Bootcut jeans.
Yeah.
Kate.
Yeah.
The length of them.
That's the one thing I didn't get to ask you about.
well, let's
Okay,
just-
yes,
say-
sorry.
Okay, you know I'm quick.
Yeah.
The length of the jean
Yeah.
is so of that length that even when you wear an ankle boot stiletto heel, you know, the pointy ones
Yeah.
with that really thin heel, it goes through the bottom of the jeans.
Wow.
So they have that little
Rip.
Yeah.
hole and some fray and maybe
All
some
scuzzy.
mud.
Yeah.
So we tried to do that with the crowd, if not Kate, on a couple of pairs.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's things like that.
Yeah.
We would encourage directors for close-ups on things
Of
like
things
that.
like
They'd look
socks.
at you like you're insane.
Yeah, because Kate is so much about the bottom half.
Yes.
The noughties, 90s and noughties is so much
Yeah.
about that shape.
Yeah.
Whereas Diana, you can get across here because it's a pie crust.
Right. And also, but she's got all the jewelry too. Diana's got earrings.
Yeah,
and all
Kate
of that
doesn't
kind of
have
stuff.
any
exactly.
of that. So you
yeah.
really want those shots to
Yeah.
see that we're situated in that period
Yeah.
now.
The entirety of The Crown has served up a lot of really, really great costume moments. So on your rewatches, you can go back and pay attention to all of those little details that Amy and Sid shared with us. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more costume as character. Thank you for watching.